Hi guys. So yesterday we did some things where I asked you to go get your measuring cups and to see 1 cup, 1/2 cup, 1/4 of a cup, and even 1/3 of a cup. Today we're going to do it with paper. This kind of reminds me of what we did 2 days ago when we looked at the art room and 4 boys sharing a piece of paper and 2 girls. So here we have one piece of paper, right? So I'm going to write whole on this because this is a whole piece of paper. And then I'm going to write one out of one. And I'm just, so we can see this is what a whole piece of paper looks like. It's just one piece of paper of one piece of paper. This is just the piece of paper, right? A whole piece of paper. So purple is our whole piece of paper. Then I have this red piece of paper right here. This one I'm going to cut in half. 1/2. And we're going to be having 2 pieces of paper that would be, if they would have still been together, would have been a whole. But now there are 2 pieces of paper. This is 1/2. This is the other half. Okay? So I'm going to write down some of the words that have to do with half, which is half, 1/2, and I'll show you just in a second. Let me write. Or 1 of 2. Because here it is. We have, they're together, it's a whole, but we're only looking at this one, which is half, 1/2, or one of the 2 pieces of paper, right? The way we write that as a fraction, which is kind of like a pretty big word and big concept, is we write this. And that really all that means is 1 on this line means out of 2, or 1 of 2. So the line kind of stands for the word of, if that makes sense. That diagonal line. 1 out of 2, or 1 of 2. Okay, so we have 2. This, it's hard to do with the camera. This is 1 of 2, the top, half, 1/2, or 1 of 2. You can write out the words. 1 of the 2 pieces of paper, right? It's 1 of our 2 pieces of paper. Now, let's try with this yellow piece of paper. And now we're going to pretend we're the boys' table, which means that I'm going to cut it into how many pieces? First, I'm going to cut it in half. You said 4, you were right. All right, now I have the same thing we just had with the red. I have 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. But now I'm going to cut it again. Trying to do this quickly, but neatly all the same, right? It's important that we're neat, even when we're doing something quicker. Okay, there we go. So now I have 1, 2. I don't have 4 hands, so I'm doing my best. I have them to back up so you can see. 4 pieces of paper, right? They were a whole piece of paper, but now I've cut them into 4 pieces of paper, or quarters, okay? So I'm going to take one of them, 1 of the 4. I'm going to write down 1 out of 4, or 1 of the 4. And I did it this way. Instead of doing the words, I did 1, and this is out of, or of, 4. 1 out of the 4. 1/4 is another way of saying it. But it's 1 of the 4 pieces of paper. It's not a whole piece of paper. It's just 1 of the 4 pieces of paper, right? We can also call that, remember, a quarter. And that makes us think of our money, right? 1/4. Or 1 out of 4. A quarter, 1 out of 4. A quarter, 1/4. Or you can use the words 1 of the 4 or 1 out of 4. There are 4 total pieces of paper, right? I'm going to hold them all up again so we can see. When they were all put together, they were the whole piece of paper. But now we're just talking about this one being the one that I wrote on is 1 of the 4 pieces of paper. It's 1 out of 4. Or a quarter, or 1/4, or 1 out of 4. It's 1 of our 4 pieces of paper. 1/4 of the paper. 1 out of 4. That makes sense, right? So here's the challenge part. I have this pink piece of paper. And I cut, first of all, the purple piece of paper I kept whole. The red piece of paper I cut in half. The yellow piece of paper I cut into fourths, 4 equal parts. This is the challenge. I've now cut the pink paper in half. I'm going to cut it into fourths. And then I'm going to cut my fourths in half again. And I don't even know. The real challenge is going to be, can Mrs. Bowman hold up all this paper? I don't think she can. I'm talking about myself. But I actually have, I'm going to count them. 1, and they're all the same size. Best I could do. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to make it like cards. 4. Do you see them all? Let's see if I can spread these in my other hand. Oh, it's really hard. And I have, you can see, 8 pieces of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So 8 pieces of paper. All the same size. I'm going to stack them together. They're all the same size. This is all of them. Like, I actually could play cards with them, couldn't I? Go fish. Anyway, so I have 1 of these 8. 1 of 8, right? 1 out of 8. 1 out of the 8 parts that made the whole, right? So that's 1/8. Or we would say 1/8. Or we could say 1 of 8. So it's 1/8. 1/8, so 1 out of 8. It's the same way, isn't it? So let's review. The whole piece of paper is just a whole piece of paper, right? It's all here. Now I split it down the middle evenly, and I have 2 halves. This one is 1 of the 2 halves, or half, or 1/2, or 1 out of the 2 pieces of paper. Then I took another piece of paper, the yellow one, and I cut it into 4 equal parts, right? And one of those 4 pieces of paper becomes 1 of the 4 pieces of paper that were the whole originally, right? But I cut it apart. So it's 1 of the 4 pieces of a whole. Or a quarter, which would be like 4 quarters make $1. We know about that, right? 1/4, or 1 out of 4. Right. And then, of course, just as my challenge, I had a piece of paper and I cut it into 8 equal parts. So it was a whole, and I took the whole piece of paper and I made it 8 little pieces of paper, all the same size, which was 1/8, or 1 out of 8. If you want to try this at home, try it at home. And you don't have to do the 8th one. So if you just get 1 whole piece of paper, 1 piece of paper you're going to cut in half, and 1 piece of paper you're going to cut evenly into quarters or fourths. And then see if you can label it the same way I did. How fun to do a whole, 2 halves, and label one of them as 1 of the halves. and 4 pieces of paper, and one of them is 1/4. One of the 4 pieces of paper. That's it. Good job, everyone. Have fun.